All right, hello everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we have Jake Hoffman, the co-founder of GolfRoots. So Jake, why don't you tell me a little bit about GolfRoots and what you do there?
Absolutely. So at GolfRoots, our mission is to make golf more affordable, more accessible for people. And we mainly do that by selling pre-owned clubs and sets, kind of direct to consumer, just trying to break down the barriers to entry into golf. And right now we're tackling that on the equipment side. And then we try and do that with our education on social media, things like that as well. As far as my role, I'm technically the COO, but we're a small company. So I would say that I have a lot of different roles. I'd say I oversee a lot of the financial planning that we do, our inventory processes, our fulfillment, really kind of everything on the demand side is kind of what I've taken ownership of. And then marketing as well kind of goes along with that. So all of that fun stuff mixed with a little bit of hiring and admin stuff.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. What does a typical day look like for you?
It's a great question. There's tons of variability, which I love. I spent a couple years in the corporate world, did not love the monotony of the day to day. So I think on a typical day, it probably has a couple of one-on-one meetings with different members of our team. That's something that's become increasingly important to me as we grow, just to make sure people are aligned. Usually there's a marketing meeting or two mixed in, along with some filming of short form TikTok or Instagram videos. There is typically a little bit of fun admin HR work, things like this morning setting up 401k, fixing a problem there with payroll. And then I'd also
Super
say,
fun.
sorry.
I said super fun.
Oh my God, it's the worst way to start the day. And then there's typically a little bit of just kind of looking through some emails. You can't ever escape that, you know. So making sure that
Right.
customer service is going well, seeing if there's anything urgent I need to respond to. But it's been a really fun mix for me the past, year or two.
Awesome. That's great. Well, I guess we'll get right into our first serious question here. What's some major industry trends or shifts you're seeing that's affecting golf routes?
Major industry trends. I think that honestly, you guys are in the golf industry. Golf is just continuing to blow up. I think that we were really fortunate. We started in 2021, really early 2021, and we've kind of ridden this wave. I think that people are getting involved at a Topgolf or other driving ranges like that, and then are starting to make their way onto the course. And so it's been really good for
Hmm.
participation. I think that you're seeing tons of new women golfers also, which is really exciting. And then also people from different socioeconomic backgrounds. So I think historically, I don't want to ruffle too many feathers, but golf has been seen as a traditionally kind of old white man sport that was really exclusive.
Right.
But over the past few years, you're seeing a lot more young people get into it. You're seeing athletes like a Steph Curry, like Travis Kelce starting to play. And so it's bringing in a lot of different people who wouldn't have otherwise played, 15, 20 years ago. So I think that's been really exciting is just the kind of diversity of background that we're seeing come into the game.
That's great. Yeah, definitely a huge movement of younger people into the game of golf, especially since 2020, and people like Good and Bob Does Sports started becoming a big
Exactly.
deal on YouTube and inspiring the youth to play. It's amazing to see. And off the back of that, with GolfRoots, with you guys are delivering secondhand clubs and used clubs, making that more affordable. What's been working well for you guys, and what's been frustrating?
Oh, great question. I think what's worked well for us is trying to be very much ourselves, very authentic.
Hmm.
We pretty heavily invested, mostly time, frankly, when I say invested, time into making our own account, one that had tons of content about, golf education, entertainment, finding the right clubs for you on a budget. And that was something we started taking seriously probably 2.5 years ago. And you mentioned Bob Does Sports, Grant Hort, like all of these
Right,
brands are now incredibly famous. They've started asking these guys, would you rather be, Grant Horvat or Garrett Clark from Good, or would you rather be
right,
70 on the tour? And the truth is, the lifestyle that these guys are living, traveling, playing golf, but in a different way
right.
has been huge. And so obviously that's not us, but the same concept of going super hard on content and trying to build that community has been really successful. People are starting to identify with us. And bluntly, it also leads to a ton of sales. So I think that has been what's worked really well for us is building that community and really trying to open up the game. I think what's been frustrating for us is actually getting enough golf clubs to keep up with that demand. And so it's a great problem to have, and it feels weird saying that's a frustration. But for
Mhm.
the last couple years, we've really struggled to keep up with that demand and access the golf clubs of somebody like you or me, where we might not be a member of a country club. That's typically where we get most of our inventory from is through hosting trade-in events.
Right.
But how do we reach out to the 26-year-old or the 28-year-old that's upgrading their clubs and doesn't know what to do with their old ones? That has been a really big challenge for us as we scale and as we try and grow.
Awesome. And what have been your strategies to kind of combat that?
Man, we have, I don't want to say guerrilla marketing, but we are really trying to be creative as far as, we recently hosted a trade-in event at our warehouse where we hosted a program that's called The Avid Golfer on the Ticket, which is basically a golf talk show that's very popular in kind of the DFW area. So,
Right.
we're trying to reach a different market of people. We're really trying to push hard on our social media, highlighting different trade-ins, highlighting different options that people have to get rid of their old clubs. And then
Right.
I'd say we've also really tried to go pretty deep on things like email automation, where, a week after you receive your clubs, you'll get an email that says, hey, Ethan, what'd you do with your old ones? Do you still have them? Are they sitting in the garage? Are you looking to
Right.
get some credit or cash for them? So I'd say it's been a very multi-pronged approach and we're still testing. It has been frustrating, but we're just trying to test anything that might remotely have a chance of working.
Right. Right. That's great. Yeah, it's definitely a good problem to have when you can't keep up
It
with the
is. It
demand.
is.
That's definitely
Yeah.
not a bad thing.
Yes.
Well, in terms of demand and where you guys are going in the future, where are you guys looking to be in the next 6 to 12 months in terms of growth?
I think short term, kind of nail down that supply side. I think hopefully we get some contracts and some deals with these larger manufacturers, think Callaway, TaylorMade, Titleist, et cetera. So that way we can keep up with the demand. I think that, we're looking to start going into a new warehouse space potentially with more
Hmm.
room, the ability to have some sort of small practice slash simulator area. But I think in that 6 to 12 month relatively short timeline, we're really
Hmm.
looking to do what we're doing right now, but a whole lot better. So not trying to reinvent the wheel, not trying to, go out in too many different directions, but really stay focused on, our core mission of serving
Right.
people, of opening up the game. I think community events is another big area where I see that. We've already hosted about 3 or 4 of these types of, head to the golf range, come out, hit balls, grab a beer, things of that nature. But I think taking that online community into the real world is something that is really exciting to us. And so I think that's something along with the kind of movement and nailing down the supply issue that I want to accomplish in the next 6 months. Or
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, that's definitely valuable to you guys and nailing in that taking what you've generated from your social media and turning that into profits. It's a big deal.
exactly. That's right.
What are your plans besides these in-person meetups to kind of uh, convert the social media and marketing to sales?
Yeah, I think that these events are really special, not just in the, getting those 50 people to buy clubs. Like we're mostly online. The in-person
Hmm.
aspect isn't necessarily critical, but I think fostering that sense of community is super important. You see
Right.
all of these run clubs popping up everywhere. I think building some sort of community for every level of golfer is really exciting to us. And so to your point, that's just one way. But I think that making the right calls to action and making sure that we stay forefront and just very apparent in people's feeds is pretty critical to us. I don't know if you'd call it exposure theory or whatever it is, but if you're a big golfer and 6 months down the line you need a new iron set, we want to be that company that pops up in your feed that's not just trying to sell you the clubs, but also actually educates you. And so
Right.
hopefully we built a little bit of loyalty, a little bit of um, just kind of brand recognition that's
Right.
really helpful. I really like the theme of jab, 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 right hook. If you've ever heard of Gary Vee or some of those sorts of people where it's, hey, give lots of value, entertain, educate, and then at the end, when there's an opportunity for people to purchase your product, then that's where you make the ask.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a great strategy is provide as much value as you can so that in return people feel like, they're that not that they owe you something, but they don't mind giving helping you out, giving you a little something.
Exactly. That's
I
right.
think that's great. Now with competitors that you might have like Second Swing or other secondhand club dealers, what are you guys doing to combat that? Are you looking to kind of outshine them or what's your strategy there?
That's a great question, and it's one we get all the time. We're in the business of selling pre-owned clubs, right? So our pre-owned QI 35 from TaylorMade is going to be very similar to what you might get from Second Swing. We're not going to debate that, right? So what we can control is, how we treat people and the types of customer service, the type of customer experience we get.
Right.
And so we really try to take a Zappos, Amazon-like approach where it's how can we deliver this 11 out of 10 customer experience, whether that is sending somebody a brand new driver if their first one cracked after a few swings, whether that's spending an hour on the phone or even in person with someone, making sure they get the right club that fits their game. And obviously not overselling or anything like that, but we really want to leave people with that 5-star experience, just giving people
Right.
incredible, incredible moments or mementos to remember. We'll write jokes on the box if something's going to Kansas City, we'll write "Go Chiefs" because we have a Chiefs
Right.
fan in our warehouse. We'll really just try to do personal things that you might typically not think are scalable, and maybe Second Swing, given their size, isn't able to do that, but we are because we have
Right.
that personal touch because we're so close to the clubs actually leaving the warehouse every day. I think that's our
Right.
advantage, along with speed of execution. I think everything from a new fulfillment method to a new marketing idea or filming a video and posting it 10 minutes later, we're run by 20 somethings and 30 somethings. We don't have all of this corporate red tape. So when
Right.
it all comes down to everything, I would say the two major things are speed of execution. I actually three things: marketing, and then that customer experience that we're really striving to give.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean that's more valuable than anything is that customer experience. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's right.
and that'll then turn into word of mouth marketing for you as well. Someone
Exactly.
will buy something from GolfRoots and be so happy with their experience with you guys that their
That's the
buddies will
best,
ask them.
like you said, that's
Right.
the best type of marketing you can do. I could spend, $100 on Facebook ads, but if you leave somebody with a phenomenal experience, they're going to tell
Hmm.
their golf buddies who might buy and then tell their golf buddies. That is
Right.
really, the most important thing is how do you leave people feeling after they shop with you or even just talk with you.
Right. That's so valuable. Work on referrals, even in my business as well. It's valuable to have someone, even someone that I've had on the podcast, and refer me to one of their clients or someone they do
Oh,
business with, and
that's
say, "Hey,
right.
this guy,
Name of the
this
game.
guy does AI," and that's all I need.
And I think
And
it
and
gives people more confidence too.
of
It's one
course,
thing to pop up on somebody's Instagram reels or say, oh, that's a fun video. I kind of like them. It's really different to have somebody say, hey,
right,
I know Ethan personally. He's a great guy. You should really check him out.
right, right. You get it. That's great. In terms of AI, with AI being the future, how have you guys integrated that or planning to integrate that into your business?
It's a good question. It's something that we're top of mind, is always on the top of our minds. Honestly, today I
Right.
was texting with our CEO, and we spend a lot of time playing around with Chat GPT or Claude to see how it can be useful. I think right now a
Hmm.
big part of that is making better descriptions, things like that, for our website, giving people better material to break down, or saying, hey, is the TaylorMade M4 a forgiving driver? Without having to necessarily spend the time to write a multi-paragraph description
Right.
that would take a human forever. So I think that's one way, is making some, website modifications. But then I also think creating systems to make sure that we're buying clubs at the right prices, making our research more effective into our competitors and making sure that, we're not pricing too high or too low on products. I think another great example of how we're using that is, we recently built out a trade-in tool on our website. And even though I studied computer science in college, I was on Claude all day, giving it prompts, asking it questions to speed up the process. So I think that's super exciting. And then I'd say the last area is, in marketing, in emails, in reaching out to, our current customers and hopefully new customers, making sure that we're doing the right language, the right wording, making sure that we can work as fast as possible. Because like I
Right.
said, speed is a huge part of, how we see ourselves and how we can be different than our bigger competitors.
Right. That's amazing. That's AI is so great for many things, especially with making things more efficient, like you said, and cutting out that time that you would rather be spending organizing some deals and getting some more clubs for the demand. Well, Jake, listen, that almost wraps us up here, but I was going to ask you, is there any message you want to leave with the audience that you think is important to know?
I think message to leave with the audience. I'd say action is always better than inaction. I'm definitely somebody that tends to overthink a little bit, and at times that is, delayed progress. But I think even
Right.
if you are, not totally sure, what's been really helpful for us is just to try and then, iterate, learn, do better next time. But action is always kind of better than inaction. That's what I would say.
I 100% agree. I would say the best advice I ever received was from the PGA show this year. I got to meet one of the founders of Primo Golf, and I said, "Listen, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur. Do you have any advice for me?" He said, "I like what Nike said. Just do it." And I
That's
just
right.
did
That's what I
it.
was gonna say, but I didn't want to
Yeah,
steal their tagline. So there you go.
right,
But it's exactly right, honestly.
right. That's the only thing I would give to people. I think that's amazing. Well, listen,
Absolutely.
Jake, I really appreciate having you on today. I think this has been amazing, and I thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ethan.
Yep. Bye.